Yeah, a baked sweet potato in a latex glove. Welcome back, Dram fans. It's finally time. Around about a year ago, I bought my first bottle of Clairin Communal, which is... Clairin is an unaged white Haitian rum, and Clairin Communal was a blend, which is a curiously rare thing when it comes to Clairin. It was a blend of various Clairins from the island of Haiti, or rather Haiti on the island of Hispaniola, and I absolutely fell in love with Clairin when I first had that bottle of Clairin Communal. At the time, I paid about £30 for that Clairin Communal, and I thought that it was just so unique and different to anything else that I'd ever had, and such high quality, such intense and eccentric flavours, that it was only a matter of time until I went out and sought every Clairin that I could try, basically. And since then, I've just become a massive fan of Clairin. Little side note about that Clairin Communal, it does seem like the price has crept up a little bit. I'm sure that I only paid £30 for my bottle, which, considering that it is a lower ABV of 43%, made it really good value. In my opinion, it was an outstanding buy. Price does seem to have crept up a little bit to the point where there's now only about a £10 difference between kind of the entry-level Clairin Communal and some of the better presented sort of single village, single distillery Clairins like this Vaval. And this Vaval, the reason why I can enjoy this here in the UK, and the reason why hopefully you guys can source this as well. I know availability is not going to be worldwide on this stuff because it is very early days for the international Clairin trade, but the reason why this is available at all is because it's been made available to us by Vellier, and it's also worth noting that the importer to the UK for this stuff appears to be the Whisky Exchange. So to Vellier and the Whisky Exchange for making this Clairin available to us, thank you. So Clairin Vaval 2020, it comes in this fantastic box. I really like the presentation on all of these Vellier Clairins is absolutely superb. They're all drawn, painted by local artists from Haiti, and I really love them. I think that for something like this, which is kind of like a single village product, a truly small batch artisanal white rum, this is exactly the kind of thing that we want to be seeing. As for the bottle inside, it looks kind of like this. So the same scene on the label. Give you a close-up of that beautiful label, and also so you can read it. A lot of it's not actually in English, but there you go. We live in an international world. Hopefully you can see that and pause it and have a read if you want to. So yeah, Clairin Vaval 2020 is an unaged white Haitian rum from the Arawaks Distillery. Arawaks Distillery is currently run by Frans Vaval, whose father founded the distillery in 1947. Arawaks Distillery performed 2 distillations per day through a homemade still, heated by the boiler from an old steam locomotive. So proper, hands-on, DIY, small batch stuff. Clairin Vaval is distilled from pure cane juice grown with no chemicals, so the raw material for this stuff is not refined into molasses, as it is with most rums. It's not even refined into cane syrup. It's fermented and distilled fresh cane juice coming directly from the cane. It's actually fermented with a wild fermentation without the addition of any yeast. So whether or not this stuff actually ferments in the washbacks is all to do with the naturally occurring yeasts which are in the washbacks themselves, and the yeasts and the microfauna from the local area. So it just makes you think when you hear about Scotch whisky distilleries talking about terroir because they're using barley which was grown by someone else 50 miles away, and because the person that watches the still, making sure it doesn't boil over, lives in the house next door. This stuff is a true product of the place. Clairin bleeds terroir to the point where it's actually fermented by the local wildlife. And we also know that that wild fermentation takes a whole 5 days. So we should have a true varied, a batch variation product, as well as a very estery fruit bomb of a rum with this one. Considering that a lot of Scottish distilleries might only ferment in the washbacks for 2 days, maybe not even quite that. This stuff has fermented in the much, much warmer climate out in Haiti for a full 5 days. So they're not only doing things properly, they're doing things slowly. This bottle of Clairin Vaval that I've got here, it was produced in 2020 and it was bottled at an ABV of 53.5% with no additives or filtration. So let's get some in the glass and see what it's like. Also, unbelievably, considering that the Scotch whisky industry is still using dead bits of tree to seal their products, Velier are using synthetic corks for their Clarins. Almost all of the Clarins that I've had have been synthetic corks. So that little distillery using a homemade still and using a dead steam loco for the heat, we're getting some proper innovation from them, as opposed to the vast majority of the Scotch whisky industry who are still stuck in the past and leaving us to live with the problems caused by that. Would you like to see the natural colour of this Clairin? Not much to see there, is there? Although I suppose you could argue that it's actually quite hazy. So even this white unaged Haitian rum still shows the quality and the fact that it's not been filtered, by virtue that it's not actually that clear, which obviously is a good thing. Clairin Vaval 2020 on the nose. Clairin is fantastic. The intensity and the eccentricity of the nose in particular on almost any Clairin, it just blows you away. If you still think that, like, Islay Scotch is really an acquired taste and it's weird and unusual, I've got bad news for you. When it comes to an eccentric, an unusual and weird experience, there is a new king in town. It's almost hard to start the tasting notes for this one, because every time you take that sniff, it's just intense fermented fruit, stone fruits, sour fruits, very fermentary, yeasty, rotting fruits, overripe fruits. It's just so much. Ultra sweet tinned peaches in syrup, grassy, freshly cut grass, peppery, a little bit of a note of sugar beet in there. Like, this is going to be a very specific note to anyone out there who, like myself, lives in a rural area. But when you have the sugar beet all piled up and they start to ferment a bit, and you get that fermenting, starchy aroma from the beet because they haven't been picked up quick enough, a little bit of that. Obviously there's no sugar beet in this, but it's that starchy, rustic, fermenting sugar quality. Quite plasticky, kind of the acrid plasticky notes that you get in some of the more out there Islay whiskies, like the plasticky notes that you sometimes get on something like an Ardbeg 10. A little bit solventy super glue, like that sweet Airfix glue. But very fruity, very estery. You can tell that this stuff has had that proper craft wild fermentation. Really strong, sweet watermelon, paraffin, almond. Curiously, quite a similarity to a lot of agave spirits. I think that this is not a traditional rum. There is a massive difference between something like a Foursquare and this. They are really not even the same category. Although obviously they are rums, they are entirely different things. I think that if I was going to pick anything that this is most similar to, I would have to go with something like a heavily smoked mezcal, because it has got that starchy, grassy, slightly potatoey, agave mash character. Kind of a little note of baked sweet potato, and a little bit of a sweet, acrid, plasticky latex glove note as well. Yeah, a baked sweet potato in a latex glove. You can have so much fun with this if you have an adventurous palate, especially on the nose. There's so much character and intensity and just unusual flavours that if you've never tried Clairin before, you have never experienced before. This stuff has so much to give. And when you consider that this stuff is such a small batch artisanal product, and it's bottled at 53.5% in this case, which I think is natural still strength, because the stills that they use out there in Haiti, they are nowhere near as efficient and efficiency driven as some of the stills that they use in Scotland. It's all about quality rather than profit margins in Haiti. So it's very, very likely, almost certain, that 53.5% ABV is full still strength. Considering all that, I think that the fact that you can get a bottle of this stuff for around about 50%, if you be warned, this stuff is weird and a lot of people will react badly to this stuff. But if you have a truly adventurous palate, then this stuff for £50 is such a steal. Moving on to the palate, let's see how it tastes. Absolute explosion of flavour. Sweet and sour, stone fruits, sour fruits, very sugary, overripe mango, incredibly estery but creamy as well. Very estery fruitiness with a little bit of a burnt sugar quality as well. It's, in terms of rum, I would say that this is probably closest to some of the Jamaican white overproofs. And I think that a large part of that is because I don't know what the ester count is on this, but I imagine that it's really quite high. Comparing this to like the Hamden 8-year-old, which is not a particularly high ester Jamaican rum, but in terms of that fruity estery profile, this stuff definitely has more of that funk bomb, ester bomb profile than the Hamden 8 does. I would almost bet money that if you had this stuff analysed, you would find that the ester count in this is probably edging up towards the high hundreds. But it's also, in my opinion, more balanced and just better put together than a lot of those extreme Jamaican rums that you get. Can you tell that I like this stuff? I really do like this stuff quite a lot. Real explosion of sweet and sour on the palate every time. It really grabs your taste buds and shows you the way. Lovely notes of tinned peaches and nectarines, like sweet tinned fruit in evaporated milk. Very, very fruity when you hold it on the palate. If you take this onto your palate and hold it and just let it wash over your taste buds for a few minutes, it really rewards you in spades. And the mouthfeel as well is absolutely exceptional. Considering that this stuff is unaged, the mouthfeel is truly world class. Wonderful puckering mouthfeel with a little bit of an aniseed tarragon note on the late palate. As for the finish, let's have another little sip. Ultra sweet, but also with a growing grassy, peppery side on the late palate and finish. A little bit more of that plasticky quality coming through, a little bit of aniseed, and a little bit of brown sugar and licorice left lingering on the palate at the very end. So a really fruity and grassy, fermentary, estery, characterful and forceful, intense Clairin. You guys know that I'm really getting into my rums these days, but if I had to call a favourite, you can kind of keep your Hamdens and even your Four Squares. If I could only have rum from one place, then Clairin would be it. It's just got such an excess of character. In particular though, this Clairin Vaval, I think that it's probably the best all-rounder out of all the Clairins that I've tried, and I've tried pretty much everything that's available to me over the last year. I would say that Clairin Vaval, it is probably the best one to start with if you're looking for something truly bold and eccentric. I would say that it's not quite as bold, and in particular not as smoky as some, but it's a total fruit bomb and a lovely eccentric characterful sipping rum. If you haven't been able to guess so far, I bloody love this stuff. Seriously, I can spend such a long time just with a glass of this, and because the nose in particular is so spectacular on this, I can spend quite a long time just enjoying the aromas. There's so much to give, because it really is spectacular. It's like fireworks for your palate. It's unlike anything you've ever had, and so intense. I think it says it all that if you rewind and look at the range of tasting notes that I had just on the nose of this one, and how they encompass things that you'd normally get from rum and kirsch and whiskey and mezcal, there is so much in this. It is also worth noting though, and it has to be talked about, that while I can spend a really long time just enjoying the nose on this, certain members of my family won't be in the same room while I have this in a glass. And we're not talking about non-whiskey drinkers, we're talking about people that take some of the peatiest of the peatiest Isle drams in their stride. So I think that really tells you something about how weird and wonderful Clairin can be. Clairin, at times, can really make Isle look like the Lowlands. As you all know, I am kind of leaning away from giving things grades these days. I'm leaning away from trying to take a four-dimensional experience, which tasting and nosing a spirit is, and trying to put that on a linear scale, which is just an absurd effort in my opinion. If you want to get an idea of how good a spirit is and what makes it good, then you really need to listen to the commentary rather than just looking for a number. But how much I enjoyed this stuff is forcing my hand. I would easily give this one an A. This one is well deserving of an A grade without a doubt. So yeah, Clairin Vaval. There is a reason why I picked this one to review, because I won't be reviewing any of the other Clairins, not just yet, because I've got a few. I will be reviewing more, but not yet, because I'm very aware that a lot of people don't want rum reviews, so I will exercise a little bit of self-restraint there. But I think that if you're looking for a Clairin and you are truly adventurous, then I do think, as I said before, that there are Clairins that are more extreme in certain ways. I think that this is probably the most extreme one that still maintains that sense of balance. To me, Clairin Vaval is impossible to fault. Highly, highly recommended for the adventurous, but you've been warned. Let me know what you think of this one if you've had it, and I'm fully expecting that there's going to be a lot of people that say, I tried this and it's bloody awful. But there's also going to be possibly an equal amount of people that say I've tried it and it was life-changing. And yeah, that's a little bit of hyperbole, but this stuff is a true milestone in my spirit's journey. Fantastic stuff, and I will be seeking this stuff out for as long as it's available in this pure unaged form. A real winner in my books. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
Oh,